G'day, Dave here. It's the 19th of December. We've been looking at God's plan for Christmas, how He's getting us ready for the coming of Jesus. I want to paint a picture. Actually, I want to paint a few pictures for you and to put yourself into the scene that we're going to look at today. First of all, I want you to imagine that you're camping, you're bush camping. There are no showers, there's only pit toilets, and you've been out there for some time. You're getting a little bit crusty. You're kind of just longing to get back to civilization. I want you to imagine that you're bushwalking and you have to travel fairly light. You can't carry much with you. And so you've got limited change of clothes, maybe let's say none. And you're wearing those clothes, and during the day you're having to climb and walk through difficult stuff, and you're getting grubby, you're getting very dirty, but the sweat as you walk under the sun, and it kind of makes your clothes just sopping wet, and then you dry out and the clothing is just kind of stiff from your sweat. Now that feels uncomfortable, but how it smells is even worse. You can imagine, can't you, just coming back into civilization and having people wander away from you because of the smell of you who've been wearing the same clothes, you've been out in the bush and you haven't washed in some time. Let me encourage you to add to this. You've been walking in thongs, flip-flops, sandals. You've been out in the dirt and your feet are black. They're not only black, but they're so black that even if you try and scrub them, you're just going to bring up the grain of your footprint. You're not going to get rid of the black. Your feet are dirty, and you are dirty, and everything about you is dirty. And just to add to the picture here, you've spent time on a farm, and you're wearing those filthy clothes, and you've dried in your sweat, and you haven't had a shower, and you are wearing those flip-flops, and you're now hanging around with the animals, the cows, the sheep, the horses, and you can't always avoid the dung that they're leaving around in the paddocks, and there's all of that kind of smell that goes with that, and it's all over you. Friends, you'd fit in well with the shepherds of the first century. Here they are, they're out in the fields, and something extraordinary happens to them. Pick it up with me at Luke chapter 2 from verse 8. And there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keeping watch over the flocks at night. An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. Now, here are these men, these shepherds. They live outdoors. They're tough fellas. They're used to protecting the sheep from opposition, maybe from thieves, maybe from wolves or other predators. And they're not terrified easily, but here they are, and the angel is above them and shines on them, and they are scared. Face to face with the angels, and they're terrified. But the angel says to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people." What is that news? Well, today in the town of David, a Saviour has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. Here, God's plans for Christmas are coming together in the birth of this child. Here in this city, this town of David, Bethlehem, a Saviour, a rescuer has been born to them. He is to be the Messiah. He's God's chosen. He is the Christ. He is the Lord. He is God amongst us. He rules over all. Now, what an extraordinary scene. Here are these stinking outdoor fellas protecting their sheep, and an angel chooses to give the message first to them. And the message is one of magnificent power and splendour as God keeps his promise to send a Saviour King. And he's to be born in the town of David of Bethlehem. And the promises of God made back to the forefathers of Israel, they are now being kept. The promises made to David are being kept. The location where the Saviour is to be born, here it is identified. And this will be the sign to you, verse 12, they say. you will find a baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger. Now I want us to pause for a minute here, because we think, well, the Saviour born at Christmas, of course, where else would he be born? I mean, we know that he's going to be wrapped in cloths and he's going to be lying in a manger. That's just what a nativity scene looks like, right? But think about it. Here is the entrance of God. Here is God's chosen King. Here is the Saviour of the people. Here is the announcement of the angel from heaven, and you're going to find him in an animal's feeding trough. You shepherds, you smelly outdoors folk, you get the message first. And if you want to see him, you can. You can actually find him. Find him there in Bethlehem, in this feeding trough. This will be the sign for you. And friends, the angel says to them that he's bringing good news. And the good news will bring great joy for all people, not just the wealthy and powerful, not just the rulers and leaders, but the weak, the poor, the outcast, the shepherds. God's message is one for all people, regardless of circumstances. It's one ultimately for all nations, not just Israel, because God promised to Abraham and he promised to David that when he sent the king, he would be a saviour for all people, everywhere. Every tribe and people and language and nation would be gathered together with this king. Here he is. On that very first Christmas, God stoops down and he gives his shepherds a message that he has come in humble circumstances, lying in a manger, to bring rescue to the whole world. You see, the message of Christmas, it's upside down, it's inside out. It's not what anybody expected, but it's good news that a Saviour has come.